Hello, welcome to the process. My name is Dr. John Bush. I'm going to just quickly go over this set of rankings. I know another set. I try to include strength of schedule, SOS, and my uncertainty analysis to kind of make mine a little different, maybe a little informative, maybe not, I don't know. These are PPR redraft rankings only. I will put these figures up on the scienceoffantasyfootball.com website where I hang out and do whatever it is I do. Okay, so with that, let me roll. Strength of schedule, I note for players, easy versus tough. And so I do that because if we looked at the numbers, to me, right now, given the slipperiness of this metric, that's about the best you can do. Care what people say. This is the hardest metric to actually figure out how to use and apply. It's possible some people shouldn't even pay attention. Okay, I mean, it's better to use a tool to the best, or if you don't know how to use it, then just don't use it at all because it could be harmful. But I include it anyway. The strength of schedule is based right now in the draft rankings on 2021 data, which is stale. We don't have any idea. We have guesswork. People are looking at rookie acquisitions, coach changes, free agency moves, but you're guessing injuries. We're guessing. Done some work, some studies that suggest the extremes are a lot more realistic year to year than the middle. So defenses that were tough last year are probably going to be fairly rough this year. Those that were easy were fairly easy. I've got some of that data. I've got to find out where that is. I should post that, shouldn't I? Anyway, I've got that somewhere. I don't know if I ever posted it or not, but it was like the top and bottom 5 or 6. And after that, it got real murky. Okay. So, you're saying that's weird for a so-called analyst researcher to say, hey, it is what it is. I can't help if you're used to everybody having opinions that seem like they know what they're doing. If they could shout at you, they would, to try to show how strong their opinions are and how informative they are. That's just the louder somebody is, usually I start paying less attention. That's kind of a heuristic rule of thumb. The harder they beat their chest, the more I'm not like, what's going on here? Every metric in fantasy football has flaws, and again, it can be misapplied. So it's a guideline. This is not something I base my draft on. It is a way to inform me of a predicted aspect, and it's a guess. And if it's, players that are closely ranked in my head, then this might turn the trick. I may be wrong. But you need to know it's based on stale data and everything we have until the season starts. And probably about 3 weeks in, I will update my SOS for the first 3 weeks of the season. And I've got some data, I don't know if I published it, that even then, looking at 3 weeks is still not 100% accurate. There is some accuracy, but it still changes by the time the season's over. But there still is some tendencies and trends. So that's all we can hope for in how we use this. And that's still not perfect. Okay? So it's an imperfect measurement, as pretty much every metric in fantasy is. I don't care what people say. It is a uncertain situation. That is what we're dealing with in fantasy sports, predicting the future. I don't care what people say. I do use for trades, lineup decisions, game script predictions, streaming, defense, quarterbacks, and or tight ends. Okay, I do use this, but I try to use common sense. But as long as you realize that it's a slippery slope. Playoff weeks, I'm gonna give you my opinion based on this, but isn't it really hard? Even so, we're talking 15, 16, week 17. So stale data, which would be almost a year out, even harder to predict, certainly in the redraft. I'm sorry, in the preseason. So with that said, I try to at least highlight early versus tough in my rankings. Next is uncertainty levels. I think I've done an article, risk versus uncertainty, what the differences are. Most people don't use risk correctly. Okay, even very knowledgeable people. My definition, and it's important to get definitions in fantasy because everybody has a definition. And we've had a podcast talking about that, D. Mike and I. What's the definition of a sleeper or a breakout? Or everybody's got their own, so just be aware. People act like everybody understands. No, we don't. And so uncertainty is going to be nebulous and hard to figure out. Uncertainty levels can be low, average, high, or unknown. Regardless of rookies drafted, I consider them unknown. However, I have done some studies that show that rookies from the first couple of rounds of the draft tend to have a longevity and a higher impact than rounds 3 and down. I've got that data. I don't know if I published that or not. Again, I keep a lot of this maybe to myself. Maybe I shouldn't. Okay. So when I say unknown, it's just I don't consider enough aspects to even try to guess. So if you're curious about what uncertainty versus risk, you should go see the article. I'm not going to touch that here. I will just say that really uncertainty can be thought of as range of outcomes. So if some player is a low uncertain player, that means that I consider their range of outcomes, and I guess this is weekly range of outcomes, is narrow. So if they're a good player and they're low uncertainty, then I'm expecting to be a good player week in and week out. Not every week's going to work out, but that's an expectation. High uncertainty implies a big range of outcomes. Somebody like Tyler Lockett, for instance, we've had that discussion in best ball. He'll give you 5, 6, 7 just outstanding games, and then the other 5, 6, 7 games are just in the toilet. And so there's some extremes, and those are the extreme and outcomes. So if you think about stairs, we're talking low uncertainty means the stairs are not very steep and there's a few stairs. High uncertainty means it's like the stairway to the top of the Empire State Building. It's large. So you need to consider that, especially if you're considering two players for trades and lineups and these kind of things. And I will try to include my uncertainty. So a highly ranked, low uncertain player should be better, higher than a highly ranked, highly uncertain player for lineups and draft. I have not formally tested this yet. I need to get around to that. Okay. I have some indication, some preliminary aspects that there is something here, but what it is or how it works or the boundaries remain to be established. So I'm telling you now, you take this by what I'm given. Okay. And you're saying, well, why don't you define it a little bit more? There is equations and things. I'm not going to give that up. Sorry. This is free stuff. You're not paying me. There's no money here. It's just something I do. So I'm going to leave that as it is. I suspect there are lots of this kind of information out there that's behind paywalls or not even said, that groups, syndicates are trying to take down, probably daily fantasy sports and Vegas and these kind of things. This kind of stuff's out there, let me tell you. And don't think it's not out there. And you're saying, well, I've never run a... Well, if you're playing in home leagues, if you're playing in low-level stakes, that's chicken feed to the folks I'm talking about. We're talking about serious money on the table, $1 million kind of pots and things. Then you get the sharks come out, the whales. And they probably have secret partners and things and paid people and people that are running Bayesian simulations and all sorts of stuff. And I don't even know what's out there stuff. Okay. I know enough to know that there's stuff out there. Okay, I don't know what it is, but I know that it's a squishy floor. It's not solid. And you should never think that in any kind of uncertainty situation in predicting the future. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled at the stock market, horse racing, gambling, anything. The floor is not solid. Okay. If it was solid, everybody would be making money and Vegas wouldn't exist. Okay. So that's kind of I think that's all I'm going to say about these things. So, defenses. This is just kind of how I see it right now. This is with the caveats. I have the easy versus tough schedule. You would figure the Bills and the Patriots are probably pretty damn good. Saints, Broncos, Dolphins could be really good as well. That's my top 5. Frisco, Colts, and Rams could be better, could be worse. It's a tough kind of situation and an average level of uncertainty. Where it gets really murky to me is a tough schedule with a high uncertainty. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All those defenses are really have a high range of outcomes. And streaming, there's probably weeks they're usable. And that's the thing. I stream defenses. This is more when people do this. Am I going to just play one defense? If I was, I would be looking for the top group. I would not be looking, in the mid pack or even probably past the 6. I would try to grab probably the top 5. I would love the Patriots or the Bills or the Broncos probably would be my top one. I think the Saints, though, and the Niners could really be something good this year. But the range of outcome is average. Okay. So I usually stream defenses, and I've talked about that in my strength of schedule. All my lessons, you can go follow which ones you should be thinking about for week 1 and etc. Kickers, I guess Matt Gay has an easy schedule. Sanders and Suckup is a tough schedule, so probably it's even more tricky than people think. I guess Blankenship is pretty good as well, has low uncertainty, easy, so maybe he should be higher. I use the stream kickers. I think I would take Blankenship or Koo just because we're talking week 14 bye, so I don't have to worry about it till week 14. So I'm probably not the world's expert on kickers, so I would take my rankings grain of salt. Quarterbacks. Herbert, to me, has the lowest uncertainty. He's going to deliver in the top group. Average schedule. Allen's average schedule, so it's a little bit more uncertain. Lamar Jackson and Mahomes. These guys could be really good, but I think they both have a tough schedule, and that leads to higher uncertainty. Murray has a tough schedule. So if you told me would I draft Hurts over Lamar Jackson and Mahomes, I have on occasion. Or I've just skipped those and grabbed Hurts later. Wilson, he has an easy schedule, but I still consider him very uncertain just given his performance last year. He really took a step back. You could look at some of these. I've drafted a lot of them before. I guess if I'm streaming and I'm way down, then I'm probably playing the weekly streaming game. And this kind of ranking is just kind of across the season and not really weekly. So you have to see my weekly stuff. Running backs. Taylor figures and McCaffrey's high uncertainty. Just you cannot in good conscience say he doesn't have a high range of outcome. So I have taken Eckler over McCaffrey and Taylor, but I think Taylor's probably on paper should do well. Henry, I'm drafting him probably maybe higher than most. I have drafted Cook, but notice he has high uncertainty. Kamara, Jones, and Barkley, high uncertainty as well. Those people are investing in an anchor running back, and there's 5 of the top 11 to me have high uncertainty. So I get worried about that. Okay, I really do. Somebody like Fournette has a tough schedule, but low uncertainty. So you assume that he can overcome that, but would it surprise me that he finishes out of the top 12? Yeah, it would. I mean, it would surprise me, but it wouldn't be just a total shock either. So you can look through here. Some are unknown. I don't think anybody, Etienne, Akers, Dobbins, can say that those guys, Breece Hall, you don't know. Okay, I don't care what people say. Okay, you don't know. Here's some more players here. You can, take a look at this, see what you think. Not going to comment much here. We're getting deep here at this point. Tight ends. Travis Kelsey should be the best, but notice he has the highest uncertainty. To me, Andrews on paper has the low uncertainty in the top three. I like Pitts. He's got a tough schedule, folks. So that worries me. Waller's got to have high uncertainty as well. To me, if you're looking for the safest play, it's Schultz or Andrews in the top six. Goddard, I like, but he's got a tough schedule. So I usually put together streaming tight ends if I'm not getting the top three. I've grabbed Goddard. I'm sorry. Ertz, I've grabbed Hawkinson, Fairmouth. I like Fairmouth because he's easy low. That's not bad. He's of the top 10, he's the easiest schedule and low. So I've definitely tried to anchor him with others to do a stream. Here's some deeper plays here. If you're in a tight end premium, you may want to have a couple. Shh. The dog even not sure he agrees with that. Hey. Shh. Okay. The wide receivers, top 30 here. There's not a one that has an easy schedule and is low uncertain. So everybody's got a knock against them. Isn't that interesting? I don't know how it was last year. Hadn't looked at my data. But this, to me, seems a little trickier than usual. With that said, traditionally, if wide receivers are going in the top 6 in ADP, they usually, historically, are very solid. So I'm curious to see here in the next 2 weeks or so before September, is it 6th, where the ADP will line up for Jefferson, Kupp, Chase, whatnot. I was getting digs later, like I was actually able to get him like around the turn or even somewhere after the turn. So that is kind of interesting in a 12-team league. So you're going to have to pick your spots. Do you worry about a tough schedule or uncertainty? To me, I think a tough schedule can be overcome. It's the uncertainty that concerns me more. So I would have to rate that. If I have to choose, I would go towards the higher concern. So Diggs has my concern. Lamb has my concern. Tyreek Hill, tough and high. Very, very concerning. I have drafted him. Brown, DJ Moore, Sutton, McLaurin, Allen Robinson, care what people say. He's got high uncertainty. Juju Smith-Schuster, Cooper, Jerry Jeudy. All those, to me, have a lot of uncertainty. So I think there's some tricks and traps here. And Michael Thomas, I just put him unknown. I don't know what we're getting there. So to me, it's hard to find some really safe choices if you're not grabbing some of the top 4 or 5. You know, if you're not getting Kupp and Chase or Samuel or Higgins or St. Brown, that's the only low ones in the top 30. So care what people are saying, and I may be too pessimistic. That's fine. Hope I am. And, you know, we've all got to draft wide receivers. But no, you know, I'm not seeing just obvious gotta takes. It's more like, okay, I've got to finesse my take here. I'm not sure what I'm getting. A little concerned. So I remain that way for the wide receivers this year. And that's about all I can say about that. Okay, let's move. Okay, continuing on. Uh, the To me, Christian Kirk has an easy schedule and he should do fairly well. The problem there, he's 41st, and Lawrence is still hasn't proved to me. So that seems to be the obvious choice here. I'm worried about Myers, Hopkins, Landry, Shark, Galladay are all high uncertainty. Claypool as well. So Moore and Davis should be fairly certain. And I do, Kirk is okay, but there's 3 in the next 30. So it is really hard to find so-called safe choices in wide receivers this year. I don't know if anybody's talking about that. In other words, I don't even know how you measure that. I'm just saying what the you shake all the wing nuts and what comes out. This is what's coming out to me. I'm feeling a lot stronger about my running backs and tight ends this year than I do about the wide receivers. So I need to kind of look back and just kind of see, is it always kind of murky, or is this year kind of a strange year? And I don't know how to answer that. Okay, and I would continue on going through here, but anyway, this is a suggestion. I think before my drafts, I would just make some notes, or you're certainly, you can go and screenshot all these from the Science of Fantasy Football website, and then you could, work your cheat sheet up a little bit. You could even put T blank or E if you wanted to do easy and tough. Okay, you could just note low or high uncertainty. You could just do an L and an H. That may be a way just to kind of do some shorthand so your league mates can't peer over your shoulder. What the hell is that? Tell them none of your beeswax. Okay, I'm an old man, so corny dad jokes, that goes a long way with me. Okay, good luck. I will try to get team by team. I will kind of reshuffle these rankings a little bit. Time I get to that, hopefully maybe next week, so you can look at some of these players in their actual team and how they seem to fit in. And to me, that is as important as just rankings outside their team. I like to see what the team build looks like as well, and I think you should as well. Okay, have fun. Let's go crush this year. Woo woo.